Leaving a 5-star review doesn't summon any spirits, probably. But it does help Vivid Nightmares reach more true crime lovers who like their cases with a side of creepy. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Click the stars and help me keep the nightmares coming.
Whispers of truth, twisted with fear. You've entered the dark, you're already here. Vivid Nightmares.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Vivid Nightmares. I'm your host, Bridgett Denise. And tonight, we're kicking our boots off and settling in for something a little different. Instead of sticking to the fancy plantations and big-name hotels, we're looking at everyday places. You know, the little diners, the opera houses, the random street corners where the spirits just didn't get the memo to move on. These hauntings don't come with 5-star reviews, but honestly, they're the ones that stick with you the most. Now, I will say, we're going to step just slightly outside the South for one story tonight. I know, but trust me, the haunt is worth the detour. And don't worry, we're coming right back home after. So grab your flashlight, pull your chair a little closer, and maybe, just maybe, keep one eye on the door. 'Cause tonight's ghosts aren't waiting around. All right, first up, we're heading down to Florida, a little town called Monticello. Now, Monticello is tiny. I'm talking population under 3,000 tiny. But it's got a huge reputation for being one of the most haunted spots in the whole state. And right in the middle of it, you've got the Monticello Opera House. This gorgeous old theater was built back in 1890. You know, back when having an opera house basically meant your town had made it. Big arched windows, velvet drapes, creaky wooden floors. Honestly, it looks like the set of a ghost movie already. And, turns out, it kinda is. Locals swear the place is haunted by multiple spirits. The most famous? A little girl named Elizabeth. She's been seen flitting across the balcony, peeking out from behind the stage curtains, even tugging at people's sleeves during rehearsals. One woman said she felt a tiny hand grab her dress while she was setting up for a play, and when she turned around, of course, no one was there. Just Elizabeth doing her thing, I guess. But the vibe inside the opera house shifts real quick after dark. People have reported hearing whispers coming from empty rows, phantom applause, cold breezes on still nights, and, this is my favorite, random piano notes, even when the piano's been locked up tight. A few paranormal teams who stayed overnight said they caught clear EVPs. One recording sounded like a little girl giggling. Another said they captured a voice saying, "Play with me" in the middle of the night. Which, absolutely not, Elizabeth. I'm good, thanks. There's also been reports of an older male spirit, possibly the theater's original manager, who's been seen pacing the upper balcony, sometimes muttering to himself, like he's still waiting for the next act to start. Even people who don't believe in ghosts say there's something about that building, like the walls are humming with energy, just waiting for the curtain to rise again. And honestly, I'm here for it. Ghosts love drama. Opera houses just give them better acoustics. All right, from a haunted opera house, let's roll right back down south, where an entire town once got a little too haunted for comfort. Next stop, the Surrency Ghost. A poltergeist so wild it made national news back in the 1800s. All right, so picture this. You're living in a tiny southern town, minding your business, and suddenly your house starts throwing dishes at your head. Welcome to Surrency, Georgia, where the ghosts didn't just show up. They showed out. Surrency, Georgia, back in the 1870s, was your typical quiet, blink and you'll miss it kind of town. But for one unlucky family, it became the center of one of the wildest, most aggressive poltergeist cases the South's ever seen. The family at the heart of it all was the Surrency family. The town's founding family, actually. They started noticing weird stuff. Chairs sliding across the floor, books flying off shelves, windows slamming shut in the middle of a calm day. At first, they thought it was pranks or bad luck. But when the furniture started stacking itself in the middle of the night, yeah, they realized something was seriously wrong. And y'all, it didn't stop with just the house. People said you could see phantom lights dancing down the streets of town. Passengers riding the train through Surrey claimed to see shadowy figures standing along the tracks, just staring. No lantern, no movement. And when the train would pass, gone. Visitors brave enough to stay at the Surrey house said their suitcases would unpack themselves, books would fly across the room, and once, someone's boots marched themselves right out the front door. If my own shoes ever start walking out without me, that's it. I'm moving that day. The story got so wild that reporters came from as far away as New York to write about it. One newspaper even called it America's most violent haunting. And the wildest part? The Surrey ghost didn't seem evil, just chaotic. It didn't hurt anybody, but it definitely wanted attention. Eventually, the Surrey family packed up and moved. And wouldn't you know it, the hauntings followed them for a little while, before fizzling out completely. Some people say it was tied to the land. Others claim it was attached to the family themselves. Maybe something they didn't even realize they'd invited in. Either way, the little town of Surrey never really lived it down. You mention it to locals today, and some of them still lower their voices, like whatever was there might still be listening. All right, y'all, grab your good luck charms, because next, we're heading over to Augusta, Georgia, where a single cursed pillar once made the mistake of standing in the wrong place, and apparently cursed everyone who touched it.
This show runs on coffee, research rabbit holes, and Southern ghost stories whispered in the dark. If you'd like to support Vivid Nightmares, consider leaving a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show reach more listeners. And if you want even more haunted history and unsolved stories, visit our link in the show notes to grab bonus content and more. Thanks for helping keep the nightmares vivid.
You ever walk by something random, like a statue or a street sign, and just get a bad feeling? Well, in Augusta, Georgia, there used to be a pillar so cursed, people wouldn't even look at it sideways. Okay, let's set the scene. Back in the early 1800s, Augusta had this big, busy open-air market right downtown. Vendors selling vegetables, gossip flying around, just your classic Southern market scene. In the middle of it all, there was this stone pillar, part of an old market building that had mostly crumbled away after a nasty storm. But for whatever reason, that one column just stayed standing. Now, local legend says a traveling preacher, one of those fire and brimstone types, showed up one day. He tried to hold a sermon at the market, but the vendors basically laughed him off, wouldn't listen, wouldn't stop selling. So, according to the story, he cursed the pillar, said the market would fall, the town would suffer, and anyone who tried to move or destroy that pillar would die a terrible death. And y'all, whether you believe in curses or not, what happened after? Kinda makes you wonder. Shortly after the preacher's curse, a huge storm did destroy the market. The pillar? Still standing. Buildings around it came and went, but that one stubborn stone just wouldn't budge. Over the years, a few different people supposedly tried to tear it down or move it. And yep, according to local lore, every single one of them died in bizarre or sudden ways. One man had a freak construction accident. Another died mysteriously weeks after trying to remove the foundation. Honestly, at some point, you just leave the cursed rock alone. Like, why mess with bad energy? Even up until recent years, locals refused to park next to it. People would cross the street just to avoid walking too close. Bus tours? They'd slow down but wouldn't stop. And then, in 2016, a driver slammed into the pillar during a car crash. Took it out completely. Gone. And you know what some folks say? The crash itself was weird, like the driver lost control for no reason at all. There's a little plaque now where the cursed pillar used to stand. But ask anybody who grew up in Augusta, they'll tell you. The curse didn't leave. It's just ... waiting for something new to attach itself to. All right, speaking of cursed places you can sleep in, next up, we're heading back to New Orleans, where the Andrew Jackson Hotel is home to some very rowdy, very mischievous ghost kids, and maybe a few cranky adult spirits too. All right, y'all, pack your bags, but maybe skip the reservation. Because next, we're headed to New Orleans. And trust me, the Andrew Jackson Hotel might just have a few extra guests tucked into the sheets. Right in the middle of New Orleans' French Quarter, just a stone's throw from Bourbon Street, sits the Andrew Jackson Hotel. It's cute, it's historic, it's got that classic old Southern charm vibe. And it's also absolutely crawling with ghosts. Now, before it was a hotel, the spot where the Andrew Jackson stands was home to something a little heavier. A boys' boarding school. And if that wasn't enough, the school burned down in the late 1700s. And tragically, several young boys didn't make it out. Yeah, it's already giving haunted before you even walk in. The hotel was eventually built right on top of that same spot. And today, guests say they still hear children laughing, running down the halls, bouncing on beds, even when there aren't any kids checked in. One woman staying on the second floor said she woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of giggling. When she opened her eyes, she saw the bed covers lifting up, like a little invisible hand was tugging at them. She checked out the next morning, real fast. Another guest said she walked into her room after a day of sightseeing and found the TV blasting cartoons at full volume. Only thing is, she hadn't even touched the remote. And then there's the grumpy spirit, believed to be a former caretaker or hotel manager from way back. People have reported their belongings getting moved, lights flickering angrily, or doors slamming for no reason. Especially if you're, being a little too loud after midnight. I mean, honestly, I get it. I'd be a salty ghost too if I had to deal with Bourbon Street noise every night. Ghost hunters have gotten EVPs of a stern male voice, saying things like, behave and get out, especially near room 28, which, by the way, has been voted the most haunted room in the building. And just like everywhere else in New Orleans, the vibe here, it's not purely scary. It's heavy, yes, but it's also playful. Like the walls remember every joke, every bad day, every whispered secret. Maybe that's why the ghosts at the Andrew Jackson Hotel don't feel trapped. They just never really left the party. All right, one last ghost story before we turn off the lights tonight. And for this one, we're heading way out west just for a second, to a little place where a ghost cowboy still keeps watch over the saloon.
If this episode gave you chills or made you side-eye your hallway, share it with someone else who loves a good scare. Word of mouth is how we grow this haunted little community. And trust me, the more of us here, the darker it gets. Send it to your favorite true crime buddy or that one friend who swears they don't believe in ghosts yet.
All right, now I know I said we're mostly sticking to the South, but for this last one, we're making a quick little ghost road trip out west. Because the haunt at the Oxford Saloon, is too good not to share. So way out in Snohomish, Washington, there's this little historic downtown that honestly looks straight out of an old postcard. Cute shops, cobblestone sidewalks, and then you stumble across the Oxford Saloon, this old-timey bar with bright windows and a whole lot of ghost stories packed inside. The Oxford's been around since the early 1900s. And back then, it wasn't just a saloon. It was a bar, a boarding house, and let's be real, a brothel upstairs. 'Cause it's not a real ghost story without a brothel somewhere in the timeline. The most famous ghost here is a guy named Henry, a policeman who used to moonlight as a bouncer at the Oxford. According to legend, Henry got into a fight with a customer one night and ended up being stabbed to death near the staircase. And you better believe Henry never clocked out. People say he still hangs around the saloon, especially near the bar and the back staircase. Patrons have reported feeling a heavy hand on their shoulder, like someone's tapping them to say, hey. Only when they turn around, there's nobody there. Bartenders cleaning up after hours say they'll catch the reflection of a man in an old police uniform in the mirrors behind the bar. But when they look back, nothing, just empty stools. If a ghost in uniform showed up while I was trying to close up for the night, yeah, no thanks, Henry. You can have the keys. And it's not just Henry causing a stir. People also claim to see ladies in old-fashioned dresses lingering by the upstairs windows, peeking out like they're waiting for someone. One woman even said she saw a full-bodied apparition of a lady in purple, just standing at the top of the stairs, looking straight at her, before she faded into the wall. Ghost hunters who've investigated the Oxford have recorded EVPs of laughter, whispers, even a gruff voice saying, "Get out from upstairs." And more than one investigator left early because the energy just got too heavy. And here's the kicker. Even regular customers, the ones who swear they don't believe in ghosts, they'll still warn you not to go upstairs alone. Because whether you believe or not, everybody in Snohomish kinda agrees something's still hanging around the Oxford Saloon. And it's not just the smell of whiskey. And just like that, we've made it through another night full of spirits. Both kinds, and that's a wrap for tonight's haunted road trip, y'all. We peek behind the curtains at Monticello's ghostly opera house, dodged flying dishes with the Surrency ghost, side-eyed a cursed market pillar in Augusta, heard giggles and ghostly pranks at the Andrew Jackson Hotel, and even took a little wild detour out west to the Oxford Saloon, where the whiskey flows and so do the spirits. Y'all, if there's one thing these stories prove, it's that you don't have to be in a graveyard to meet a ghost. Sometimes they're just hanging out, watching your karaoke performance, waiting for a dance. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, if you laughed, got a little spooked, or made a note to never stay in room 208, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a review if you're feeling extra sweet. It helps more haunted history lovers find our little campfire. And if you've got your own true ghost story, a weird encounter, or just want to tell me about a creepy diner or haunted hiking trail in your town, slide into my DMs at Vivid Nightmares Pod on Instagram and TikTok, or send me an email at vividnightmarespod@gmail.com. I love hearing your stories. New episodes drop every Friday because the South and sometimes a little beyond always has one more ghost ready to say hello. I'm Bridgett Denise, and until next time, keep your flashlight close, your coffee strong, and your vivid nightmares just weird enough to make you wonder.
When the lights go low and the shadows creep, stories forgotten begin to speak. Whisper.
This show runs on coffee, research rabbit holes, and Southern ghost stories whispered in the dark. If you'd like to support Vivid Nightmares, consider leaving a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show reach more listeners. And if you want even more haunted history and unsolved stories, visit our link in the show notes to grab bonus content and more. Thanks for helping keep the nightmares vivid